We are so close. SpaceX is ready to launch Flight 5, but are they ready to land? Ship 31's heat shield is almost complete, but it's not supposed to be. SpaceX loses a Falcon 9 booster. What does this mean for future flights? And Rocket Lab releases stunning new footage of its state-of-the-art rocket factory. My name is Felix. Welcome to What About It? Let's dive right in. Starship updates. SpaceX has once again shown why it is the leader in the space industry. Its speed is unmatched. Teams have continued working on Launch Tower A in preparation for the 5th flight of Starship as a literal army of man-lifts works around the clock to finish upgrades. As far as we can tell, repairs following Flight 4 have finally been completed. The ship quick disconnect is now straightened out and very little work continues on launch-related ground hardware. Unlike other rocket launch towers though, this one's job doesn't end after the rocket leaves the pad. That's why so much work is being done on the chopstick catch arms, which will be used to catch the first stage Super Heavy booster out of mid-air during Flight 5. Because this maneuver is so new, SpaceX has been putting a lot of work into reducing the number of unknowns. The main way they've achieved that is by testing, and after the most recent round of testing on booster 14.1, they found many areas in which they can improve even more. As fast as SpaceX has been working, it seems that they might run out of things to do soon. Once teams finish reinforcing the chopsticks and putting back the padding, there may not be much work left to do. Of course, after these upgrades are done, SpaceX may roll booster 14.1 back out again to see how these improvements turned out. There has even been some speculation about a possible drop test with booster 14.1. Why do I say that? Because booster 14.1 had new attachment points installed on its catch pins. But once all the improvements are made and tested, all that will be left to do is to launch the 5th Starship flight to space and see how far this one gets. According to my sources, I'm expecting a launch within the next 2 to 3 weeks. At the very least, they should be able to take the data they've learned from testing with booster 14.1 and the improvements they've made and show the FAA that they are ready. SpaceX is one of the only rocket companies that moves so fast that regulators can't keep up. So before everybody blames the FAA, it is important to note that SpaceX's speed is a new phenomenon in spaceflight. All the regulations and rules regarding spaceflight were designed for an era when fast innovation meant a design alteration was made in months instead of years. Now, SpaceX is doing it in hours. However, the FAA isn't the only regulatory agency giving SpaceX headaches. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality targeted SpaceX and fined them nearly $4,000 for unauthorized discharge of industrial wastewater. $4,000? Musk replied to this in a tweet stating that the wastewater in question was clean, drinkable water. This likely means the fine is for the water deluge system, which has caused SpaceX to clash with regulators a few times now. Clearly, $4,000 is just a drop in the industrial wastewater collection bucket for SpaceX's Starship program, but this fine could have implications elsewhere. This comes at a time when SpaceX is seeking increased launch cadence from the FAA. A ruling like this could lead them to conclude that SpaceX's environmental impact could be greater than allowed. Hopefully, the FAA taking its time will ensure a higher quality and they'll be able to see that there is no harm here. The problem lies in the definition of the term industrial wastewater. As soon as water is involved in an industrial process, it is industrial wastewater when it comes out, no matter if it's polluted or not. Moving on to something more positive, we have a lot to look forward to with Tower B. This will be the 2nd operational launch tower and it's getting closer and closer to beginning those operations by the day. This tower popped out of nowhere. Teams needed to leave gaps for where the modules stacked together, and that is what's being filled in now. We can even see that teams are finishing up installing the chopstick rails, and the last of those should be installed by the time you're watching this. With how quickly SpaceX has installed these rails, they are likely trying to fast-track chopstick installation. We may even see SpaceX roll in the chopstick carriage from the build site any day now. At this rate, Tower B may be ready to catch a booster by the time Flight 5 launches. Catch only tower, anyone? In all seriousness, it is unlikely SpaceX would risk its brand new tower when it has an old one that still works fine. Not to mention a failed landing here would likely cause even more damage than a failed landing on Pad A. Pad A will be used to launch and catch starships, and to launch anything from Pad B you need a lot of ground equipment. That's why we've seen a ton of work on the ground where teams have been hard at work connecting the orbital tank farm to the new launch pad. Thanks to our eye in the sky with Redline Heli, we can see that workers have been focusing on digging trenches between the launch pad and the fuel farm. We should soon start seeing pipes rolling in and being placed down to connect the tank farm to the new launch mount and tower. Of course, the launch site isn't the only place where infrastructure has been extensively improved. But before I tell you about that, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. And while you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to a massive amount of extra content. With it, you get access to daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far. Satellite, aerial and ground photos, more than 400 posts in the past 2 years alone, with up to 7 picture galleries per week. Insights, chats with me, you name it. Thank you so much, you rock. Over the past few years, the build site has gradually transformed from a fixer-upper into the largest rocket construction site in the world. Gone are the days of Tent City, because the new Star Factory is here to stay. SpaceX has likely either finished or is about to finish installing all of the major hardware inside the Star Factory's main building. I say that because SpaceX has now turned its focus to something else on the outside. Aesthetics. Those have always been close to SpaceX's heart. Just compare their Dragon capsule pressure suits with those from Boeing. Here you can see that SpaceX's workers have been installing brackets to mount a SpaceX logo on the outside of the office building. SpaceX has also been revamping one of the entrances to make it a bit fancier. In reality, all this cosmetic work is still only a side project for SpaceX. The bulk of the work is still going on around the office building in the connector, and it is growing by the day. Yeah! SpaceX has been rapidly working on both infrastructure and flight hardware. Ship 31, for example, is seeing a ton of prep work before its flight, likely on Flight 6. So what work has been done? The heat tile crew is hard at work. It's gained a significant amount of tiles since we last talked about it. It's still a bit of a mystery why SpaceX opted to install these first, but clearly teams are working fast to get it done. From what we can tell, most of the initial sections that had lost their tiles have gained them back, with the only exception being the flap hinges. Improvements coming? It almost seems like SpaceX has been installing the tiles backward from what they did before. Hopefully we'll begin to see work on the rest of Ship 31's heat shields soon, because at this rate Ship 33 is catching up fast. Speaking of Ship 33, let's see how fast this next generation prototype is coming along, because it's been nothing short of breathtaking. Today I have something special to give to you, an advice. SpaceX's biggest development secret can be applied to more than just rockets. The best part is no part. So I'm a huge fan of small wallets. This trend started several years ago and it does just that. It simplifies something you have to deal with daily. That bulky thing in your pocket or purse, that chunk of leather preventing you from sitting down comfortably. I've tested the Extra wallet for the past few months now and I love it. This is a huge difference. Extra has improved the wallet in a highly satisfying way. Meet the Extra wallet, the first solar-powered Apple trackable slim wallet in the world. I mean, look at this thing. This is sleek. 2 hours in the sun equals 3 months of tracking. It's half or even less the size of a traditional wallet, while being able to carry 12 cards plus cash. And at the push of a button, all of them are easily accessible. On top, it's got built-in RFID protection, preventing data theft through wireless connections. We can all agree that SpaceX is leading its industry by being smarter than the rest and questioning the requirement. Extra does the same for your wallet. Check it out now. Use my code WHATABOUTIT for up to 35% off, and you'll even get an additional discount on any web sales. After just over a month on the weld stand, which welds ring sections together, teams have already completed the initial construction of Ship 33. We saw teams rolling the last pieces needed before testing, the raceways, which carry electricity and information down the ship's length. These have likely seen changes from the previous design, especially after the incident on Ship 31 in which a nearby pipe broke, causing a small electrical fire. With those installed, teams have finally lifted this ship off the weld stand to finish its construction. First, Ship 33 was lifted onto the center work stand, but then just a few hours later, it was once again lifted. This time it was placed on one of the work stands on the left of Mega Bay 2. During the lift, we could also see where work still needed to be done on the ship. Most notable are the missing heat shield tiles around the engine section. We talked about this a bit in a previous episode, but in essence we believe this is due to a tile shortage. These spots will be filled in later. There's also a gap in the aerodynamic covers for the aft flap hinges. This gap exists for a similar reason to the gap in equipment between tower modules on Tower B, which we discussed earlier. It can also be seen on other prototypes like the older Ship 32. Now that it has been moved to that work stand, teams should be able to finalize the work and begin testing this brand new design. It's incredible to see how much SpaceX has been able to do in such a short amount of time. Now that SpaceX has moved the ship off the weld stand, the stand can be freed to begin work on another ship. We may even see Ship 34, which we were likely able to catch a glimpse of inside the Star Factory, rolling out any day now. And of course, what better place to test these new prototypes than SpaceX's very own state-of-the-art rocket testing facility. So let's check out everyone's favorite, Massey's. This testing site is designed to give engineers real-world data to verify hardware and design changes for Starships and Super Heavy boosters before building the full thing and risking prototypes. From a nose cone cage designed to pull a nose cone to simulate the forces of re-entry to the new Can Crusher 2.0, which can crush and bend all sorts of prototypes to verify their strength. This new Can Crusher has yet to see its full potential, other than a small cryo test performed a few weeks ago. But that is going to change any day now. Test Tank 16, which is suspected to be a Block 2 Pathfinder, has been patiently waiting in the new Can Crusher for its turn to be tested. It will verify design ideas for the second and maybe even third generation of Starships. In the last episode we talked about how teams had begun installing rods that connect the lid to pistons at the base of the Can Crusher. Now the teams are finished and they fully installed them. However, as of recording, teams still have not attached the horizontal pistons, which are designed to bend the test tank, although that should happen any day now if it hasn't already. And once those are hooked up, we should see some more can crushing. It is curious to see that it takes SpaceX so long to attach these pistons. I hope that is only for the first setup. The only question is, will Test Tank 16 survive this new Can Crusher? Let us know what you think down below. As work on Starship is going extraordinarily well, SpaceX's other rocket has recently encountered a few hiccups. Last month, we covered how SpaceX lost its first Falcon 9 mission in nearly 8 years and over 300 launches. This failure was caused by a small leak in the second stage, which eventually caused a rapid unscheduled disassembly of the engine. During that flight, despite the second stage failure, the first stage booster 1063 could land on its drone ship for reuse safely. However, this booster's sibling, B1062, just met a much different fate after its most recent launch. Everything was going normally after what appeared to be a standard Falcon 9 launch. The booster successfully deployed the second stage before entering on target and heading for the drone ship. After lighting its engines, it appeared that the booster had made yet another perfect landing right in the center of the drone ship. However, just a second later, it was obvious something had gone very wrong. Flames began engulfing the aft end of the booster before it finally tipped over and decided it didn't like being in one piece anymore. This was a pretty unfortunate turn of events for this booster, as it was the life leader of SpaceX boosters. Before this launch, it had successfully flown and landed 22 times, making it the first booster to fly 23 times successfully. This is also the first time SpaceX has lost a booster this year, with the last time being booster 1058, which was also the life leader at the time. However, unlike that booster, which tipped over after a successful landing, this one clearly had a failure at landing. Because of this unfortunate turn of events, the FAA declared a mishap and required SpaceX to investigate. Oh, come on. This slightly paused Falcon 9 launches, pushing back a few missions, including Polaris Dawn. However, given that it only took SpaceX 10 days to go from a complete launch failure to a return to flight after the failure mentioned earlier, it is no surprise that SpaceX is already launching again. Yay! Just 3 days after the failure, SpaceX got approval from the FAA to continue flying while the investigation was ongoing, as it posed no known public safety risk. So how did this happen? Unfortunately, until SpaceX releases its investigation or provides a statement, all we have to go on is the live stream. Fortunately, from that we can tell a lot, and from what we can see, there are a few scenarios that could have caused this. The first is a hard landing. This can happen when a booster comes in too quickly and impacts the landing deck at a higher speed than intended. Living life in the fast lane. Because the Falcon 9 is so light after burning so much fuel and its engines are so powerful, it is unable to hover. So the only way to land is by performing what's called a suicide burn. This means the booster needs to cancel out all of its velocity exactly at the point of landing. If it lights its engines too early, it will stop above the landing deck and start flying up again. If it starts its engines too late, well, it'll slam into the landing deck, cause a fireball, and probably tip over. It's possible that for some reason this booster started its engines just a bit later than it needed to and hit the deck too hard. The other possibility is that one of the landing legs failed. The video shows the hydraulic piston, which normally extends and locks the landing legs in place, snapping and falling away. That's not good. SpaceX has had problems like this in the past, and on the surface they appear to have quite a few things in common. It could also be a mixture of both, or a completely different reason. What do you think? What caused B1062 to sign off? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Whatever caused this booster to tip over, eventually losing this life-leading booster is still pretty sad. This booster has quite a bit of a history, including flying the first all-private mission to space, Jared Isaacman's Inspiration 4, on its third launch. So to see this booster go right on the eve of Isaacman's second flight is shocking. SpaceX managed to accomplish this with its reusability. These boosters used to be thrown away every time, and now it is sad to see one go. It's likely that the loss of this booster and the FAA's short grounding are at least part of the reason behind some of the most recent delays of the Polaris Dawn mission. Unfortunately, since then, Polaris Dawn has been put on a bit of a hold as SpaceX waits for weather forecasts in the possible landing locations to clear. Once launched, Polaris Dawn has 4 days in space. After that, it has to land. So the weather must be good on launch day in Florida and recovery day in the Atlantic Ocean. Hopefully, weather and other circumstances will clear up quickly and we can see this groundbreaking mission finally launched. Even though Falcon 9 has been running into problems recently, it's still absolutely dominating the launch market. Seeing Falcon 9's success, many other companies are racing ahead, attempting to develop a product similar to it. One of those companies is Rocket Lab, which has worked hard for the past few years on its Neutron rocket. They made a name for themselves by dominating the dedicated small satellite launch market, and since 2021 they've been developing a medium-class reusable launch vehicle, Neutron. Neutron's original launch date was 2024. However, there are 3 things you can be sure of in life: death, taxes, and delays in rocketry. Unfortunately, Neutron will not launch in 2024. However, we have seen quite a bit of work this year. Over the past month, Rocket Lab has shared all sorts of updates on Neutron's progress. This included Rocket Lab showing off its new Archimedes engine, a methane-powered workhorse engine using a staged combustion cycle unlike SpaceX's Merlin engine, which powers Falcon 9. Less power, but thanks to the missing wastegate, which blasts out unused energy on a Merlin, it is more efficient. Rocket Lab was now able to test this engine for the first time on its test stand and immediately pushed it to 102% thrust. This is a huge breakthrough for Rocket Lab and the Neutron development program. They are in business. They've also shown off their new fairing, which will be attached to the first stage and reused along with it. That's not all. Peter and his team are very busy these days. They also showed their gigantic new carbon fiber laying machine. This machine is the largest of its kind in the world, and it will be used to quickly place carbon fiber to produce the dome sections for the first stage and the interstage, which will protect the second stage during launch. This equipment is massive, and given how much work Rocket Lab has managed to do for Neutron, it's clearly far into development. With New Glenn's first launch right around the corner, Neutron likely won't be the second orbital rocket to successfully land, but at this rate, it may very well be the third. Rocket Lab isn't the only new company in town though. Just like they are trying to compete with SpaceX, there are other companies trying to compete with Rocket Lab in the small satellite market. One of those companies, RFA, or Rocket Factory Augsburg, based in Augsburg, Germany, recently experienced an anomaly during a static fire. Unfortunately, this destroyed the rocket they intended for their first flight. It also severely damaged the launch pad, which was being used to static fire the rocket. This is basically the worst scenario. For a first launch, you really want your rocket to get to a safe distance before having a likely anomaly. It's just the way it is on a first launch. Something always happens. We discussed this a bit on a previous episode, but now we finally know the cause. Thanks to a LinkedIn post by RFA's Chief Operating Officer, we learned that the root cause was likely an oxygen fire in one of the engine's turbo pumps. An oxygen fire might sound better than a fuel fire, but in fact it can be even worse. We're talking pure oxygen here, and if it finds a way to leak out, it doesn't take much to ignite almost anything. Even steel can be used as a fuel source if conditions are right. This hot oxygen found something to burn, and it quickly heated and corroded everything around it, likely causing even more failures. Hopefully, RFA will recover quickly from this incident. The company aims to produce a rocket at an efficiency and scale similar to how a car is produced so quickly. Therefore, producing another rocket should be part of the company's ethos. You got this, RFA, you rock! That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and it does help us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next episode. Or maybe that one. Yoo-hoo! The other possibility, successfully, propulsively, prettily, megally. Regulator! Phenomenon.